Hello, this is Jason Matthews. I'm a retired law enforcement officer, and I'm also a military combat veteran from the first Gulf War. And today I'm going to be explaining to you why you should not be leaving the military early, you should stay in the military, and retire from the military. So if you are either on active duty and are thinking about leaving the military when your contract ends, or you've already left the military, I'm going to tell you why you should go back into the military. And I hope you heed, or at least seriously consider and think about my warning. Let's get started. Now, it's been quite some time since I've been in the military, but I'm pretty sure it hasn't changed so much that I can't talk about it and tell you my life experience in the military and why, if I were to do everything all over again, I never would have left the military. And I'm retired from law enforcement. And you may think, wow, that's great, you're retired from law enforcement. And I will tell you, though, that I regret leaving the military and not retiring from the military. So there's a few reasons why that's the case. The biggest reason is, you see, when we're young and we're in the military, we have a very limited view on life. We have very little life experience. And I also had very little life experience because when I left the military, I was in my 20s. And I entered the military when I was 18 years old. And we always believe, and this is normal, that the grass is greener on the other side. And so I thought, I'll just do my time in the military and I'll get out and I'll get a great job in law enforcement. Because that's what I always wanted to do. My family was in law enforcement. I was always around law enforcement, and that was my life dream. However, fantasy is usually just that. It's fantasy and it's not reality. And so not knowing what was out there, getting out of the military, I made a decision to leave the military hoping that I would like it better, that it would be better. Because when you only know the military, that's your only experience is in the military, you think it's screwed up. You think there's a bunch of bureaucracy and there's problems, and it's gonna be better if you get out, that you ETS. However, I'm here to tell you it's not like that. I can't say that I had a bad career in law enforcement, but in my view, in my experience, the military was much better than out in the civilian world. Why is that? The main reason is, if you think the bureaucracy is bad in the military and there's favoritism, which happens, it's way worse out in the civilian world. Now, I was only in government my entire career. I had some jobs when I was in high school in the private sector, but other than that, I was in government my whole career. And in my experience, it's much less bureaucratic, it's much less problematic in the military than in the civilian world. People are held a lot more accountable for their actions, and things are done a lot more properly, the right way, attention to detail in the military than in the civilian world. And I'm mainly talking about civilian governments. Now, private sector, yeah, you could go out in the private sector and earn a bunch of money. You're going to be working your ass off, from what my understanding is, putting your nose to the grindstone for years, grinding away, cutthroat business, and then you are going to have money, but are you going to be happy? Because in my experience, money does not bring happiness. And I'm set for life. In the military, in my experience, people are held to account much more. Are there problems? Yes, there are. And when I'm talking about this, I'm mainly focusing on, there's a lot of laziness in the civilian world. A lot of people who are not accountable to, or held accountable by bosses, for example, to their job. Not that they're doing things generally illegal. I've talked about this, how, yes, there is corruption in law enforcement, but it's a small minority. When I say corruption, are laws regularly being violated? No. What I'm talking about is policies and procedures, internal policies and procedures, laziness, and these type of things. But if you've only been in the military and that's all you know, that's all you know. When I left the military and I went into corrections, that was my first job outside of the military, maximum security. I really enjoyed that job. But after a while, I realized there's more problems here than there were in the military. There's a less sense of camaraderie. And so that's the second thing, camaraderie. There's a lot of camaraderie in the military. You feel like you're part of an exclusive club in a way. Now, I was in the infantry and communications in my military time. But in my experience in the military, I felt a lot more connected to other people as a group, as a team. There was a lot of teamwork. When you're out in the civilian sector, in my experience, when I say civilian sector, my experience was civilian government sector. There's less of a team attitude. You're pretty much on your own. And that's why I talk about on this channel, people bring up the blue line gang, which is total nonsense. Yeah, there might be factions within law enforcement, small factions that have a gang-like mentality, but that's very rare. Usually in law enforcement, you're on the streets or you're in a vehicle by yourself the majority of the day, all alone, working cases, doing vehicle stops. You only talk to people or call people if you need them, generally speaking, unless you're on some type of a SWAT team or something like that. But there's much more of a sense of belonging in the military. The other main reason that I would argue, probably the most important reason, is you can retire much earlier in the military. So you can do 20 years. Let's say, which is common, people go in the military when they're 17 years old. You could retire at age 37, and if you manage your finances properly and you contribute to the TSP, which I didn't have the TSP when I was in the military, but I know they do now. TSP, for those of you listening who don't know, that's like a 401k for the military and government. I had a 401k in my career, and I put a significant amount of money into it every single paycheck, and I'm financially free for the rest of my life. So I get a pension, and the military gets a pension. Mine's from the civilian government, but I get a pension just like you in the military, and I have a 401k, and I have other investments. So I use my money wisely during my time where I could retire at the earliest possible point, and I'm financially free for the rest of my life. I never have to worry about money unless there's some disaster that happens. And you, as a part of the military, you have that same ability, but you can retire at an earlier age if you went into the military earlier. And I do not regret retiring at all. I retired at the soonest possible point that I could to get full benefits, and I do not regret it at all. I would never go back to work again. So I worked, put money away wisely, spent my money wisely, and now I'm free for the rest of my life to do whatever I want to do. I travel regularly, and that's another thing. If you retire from the military, you're going to have a lot of benefits like space aid travel. You can travel to locations across the world. You also get free medical care. You get free medical care. And if you're in the military right now, you are getting free medical care, free dental care. You're getting paid for food, whether you're single or married. You get housing or get paid an allowance for housing. It's basically impossible for you, if you manage your finances properly, to be poor. Now, I know it sucks if you have to deploy to a combat zone. Yes, and I have experience with that, and it sucked, and it was not fun. But at the same time, think about it. You can be in any military career if you time it right and you put in for it, or you sign up at the beginning of your military career, or you ask for, in my case, I was in the Army, they call it MOS, Military Occupational Specialty. You can ask to change that, which I did in my career twice. You just have to be persistent about it. So you may be deployed to a combat zone, but if you're not in the infantry or you're not in artillery or one of these combat frontline careers, the chances of something happening to you is very slim. And so you could be in one of these jobs. It's practically like a civilian job where there's very low risk. You're basically doing the job of a civilian in many cases, but you're getting military benefits, and you can retire with full military benefits just like the guy in the U.S. infantry. You're probably not going to be happy on the outside. You're probably not going to be happy on the outside on the job, the dream job you think is going to make you happy on the outside of the military. I remember in the military also, 30 days of vacation a year. Everybody got that. Also, they regularly gave us 3 and 4 day weekends. Like we used to have Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday off that didn't count towards leave. Do you work hard in some circumstances? Yes. If you're deployed to a combat zone, yeah, you're working your ass off and you're doing a lot of things. But to me, the benefits outweigh the negatives. So you have to assess that for yourself. But me, in my position, I'm retired. I've retired recently, and that's my perspective. Having been in the military, having been in combat, having been in the civilian government sector, in law enforcement, I carried a weapon for my entire adult life. So I know what thoughts are probably going through your head, what you're considering in your military career. Do you come up across idiots in the military? Yes, you do, but you're going to come across a lot more idiots in the civilian sector who are not being held accountable for their job. Whereas in the military, in my experience, most people are being held accountable. They don't put up with a bunch of nonsense. And when I was an NCO, non-commissioned officer in the military, I did not put up with people's nonsense. I actually loved living on military bases. I felt way more secure and safe living on a military base. I wish I could do it again, to tell you the truth. There's so many facilities available on a military base that are free also, that you cannot get out in the civilian sector. Now, some of these things I can access because I have disabled veteran status now. As you probably know, we've been allowed access to bases, which I've been accessing, and I've been staying in military lodging. I've been using the gym on base. I've been using the commissary and the PX, which it's not great. It's not cheaper than Walmart or Costco, generally speaking, but it's convenient if you're staying on base. You're right there. There's swimming pools. There's all kinds of facilities on base that you can use. And if you retire, you can access those facilities. So if you're planning on getting out of the military, I would advise you to think twice. The grass is not always greener on the other side. If you enjoyed this video, click the subscribe button and ring the notification bell to be notified when new videos are released. Take care and have a great day.